back. Another Tuesday night BBQ Pit Sports. We're going back to the UFC. Week off last week. This week, Alexa Grasso, Vivian Ajuro, main event UFC Vegas 62. Then we have the pay-per-view. Then I think we go to Orlando after that. So Grasso versus Ajuro, boxer versus jiu-jitsu. Grasso, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Ajuro, black belt in jiu-jitsu. Grasso is amazing boxer, extremely good jab in the women's division. She's 14-3, 6-3 in the UFC, losing decisions to Felice Herrig, Carla Esparza, and being submitted by Tatiana Suarez in 2018. Tatiana Suarez is a little bit bigger, though, and stronger, I would assume, than Ajuro. Grasso's currently on a 3-fight winning streak against Ji Yeon Kim, Macy Barber, and Joanne Wood, formerly Joanne Calderwood. In her most recent fight, she's never been knocked out. 9 out of her 14 wins are via decision. And like I said, she's got great boxing, but she's not really a finisher. She's like a Nate Diaz boxer. She's going to put a whole shit ton of volume on you, beat you up, and likely wear you down by the later rounds. This is a 5-round fight. Vivian Ajuro doesn't get the fight to the ground early. She's probably in trouble. Ajuro's 11-3, never been submitted, only been knocked out once in her 4th professional fight against Sarah Fronta. She's 5-2 in the UFC with decision wins over Caitlin Chikadian and Jessica Ai, both very good strikers. Caitlin Chikadian, a really good kickboxer. Jessica Ai always had a back and forth career, but does have some pretty good knockouts on her record. I'm sorry, those are her 2 UFC losses. She's beat good strikers in the UFC, including Andrea Lee and Roxanne Modafferi. Modafferi, kind of a jack of all trades. Andrea Lee, a really powerful kickboxer. So she was able to beat those 2, but Caitlin Chikadian, who, like I said, does have great kickboxing, but also really good jiu-jitsu, was able to beat her. And then Jessica Ai, same, good all around, but kind of a journey woman per se. So, I mean, I think Alexa Grasso's striking is going to be able to keep Ajuro at bay, beat her up, get her into the later rounds, get her tired, and maybe finish her. I don't really think that's going to be Alexa Grasso's ultimate goal here in this fight, is to finish her. I think she's going to be more looking to put a beating on her for as long as she possibly can until she gets tired. So I'm going to go Alexa Grasso, probably by decision, maybe by TKO or knockout. If Ajuro got knocked out by Sarah Fronta, I know that was early in her career, but I personally think that Alexa Grasso demolishes Sarah Fronta any day of the week, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Maybe not 20 years, like 20-something years old. So maybe 5-10 years ago, 5 years from now, I think Alexa Grasso is light years above Sarah Fronta in striking, and that's going to show this Saturday, even though it's been a long time for Ajuro. I got Alexa Grasso. Cub Swanson, Jonathan Martinez. I think they're doing Cub Swanson a little wrong here, man. I know Martinez is he's working his way up in the UFC. He's kind of an up-and-comer, but Cub Swanson, veteran of the sport, plus 165 in this fight. 28-12 overall record. Won his last fight via TKO wheel kick in December over Darren Elkins. He's 13-2 by knockout, but 4-7 by submission. He's 3-5 in his last 8 fights. Been in the UFC since 2011. Since he came over from the WEC. He's got UFC wins over Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Kron Gracie, and then Daniel Pereira, in addition to his latest win over Darren Elkins. Black belt in jiu-jitsu, very durable, good grappling, power in his strikes. Every single one of his strikes has a crazy amount of power. Daniel Pineda, I just want to touch on this really quick. I don't know, maybe we got some Daniel Pineda fans out there might not be too happy about this, but Daniel Pineda, when he fought Cub Swanson, was maybe 5 or 6 months fresh off of being suspended by the PFL for PEDs, for banned substance, steroids, pretty much. So they suspended him. He wasn't able to win the $1 million in the PFL. I don't know if he immediately joined USADA or what exactly he did to get into the UFC, but couldn't have been a whole year later. He was fighting in the UFC against Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson demolished him, completely destroyed this guy from head to toe, and knocked him out soundly. So definitely a good striker. and he's black belt on the ground, so he's even better on the ground. Martinez, a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, so not going to be able to hang with Cub Swanson on the ground. He's a really good striker, but he's never been submitted in his professional career. He's only been knocked out once. That was against Davey Grant in March. Trying to get to Twitch so I can share my boy's thing. Let's see. He's currently on a 3-fight winning streak, including 2 in 2022, with decisions over Alejandro Perez and Vince Morales. His only career loss, other than his 3 in the UFC, was an illegal knee against Matt Schnell in 2015. His other 3 losses were Andre Sukumta, Andre Ewell, and then Davey Grant, of course, in his most recent fight, which 2 of those 3 guys that he lost to in the UFC, at least, extremely good strikers. Davey Grant and Andre Ewell, very, very good strikers. And Andre Sukumta, good striker at some time. You know, he fought Martinez before he kind of fell off. The Sean O'Malley fight, I think, was kind of a turning point for Andre Sukumta. So I don't know, man. I look at this fight and I think, yeah, he's younger. He's definitely going to have the speed advantage, the every kind of athletic advantage you would possibly have. He's probably going to have, but you know, if the fight hits the ground, Cub Swanson's going to take over. If it comes down to power, Cub Swanson takes over. It's not really me personally. I don't think any of those things are really up for debate at all. I think Cub Swanson is going to be the stronger guy, and he is going to be better on the ground. So, I mean, yeah, he's going to give up a little bit of quickness, going to give up a little bit of speed. He's probably going to give up position here and there, but he gets his hands on you and he gets you underneath him. Cub Swanson all day, plus 165. I'd take it. Put it down. Cub Swanson. Brandon Royval versus Askar Askarov. Another really good one in those lightweight divisions. Not lightweight, but, you know, smaller. I think they're like 135, Brandon Royval and Askar Askarov. Maybe even flyweight. I can't remember what exactly weight class they're in, but Brandon Emmerich's on this motherfucker. What was I going to say? Yeah, Brandon Royval, 14-6. By the way, Royval's coming into this thing the underdog as well. I thought that was, severe, plus 205. I thought it'd be a lot closer than that at least. He's 14-6, 9 wins via submission, 3 wins via knockout. 4 of his 6 losses are by decision, and he is 4-2 in his time with the UFC. His 2 UFC losses are against Brandon Moreno via knockout and then Alejandro Pantoja via submission. And he's on a 2-fight winning streak with decision wins over Rodrigo Bontorin and a submission win over Matt Schnell in his last fight. Prior to his UFC, he has fought Jerome Rivera, Casey Kenny, Joby Sanchez, and Nate Williams in LFA prior to getting into the UFC. He's going to come into this fight with a slight size advantage over Askar Askarov, who is 14-1-1, 3-1-1 in the UFC. He's got a split draw in his debut against Brandon Moreno, 1 decisions over Tim Elliott, Alejandro Pantoja, and Joseph Benavidez before losing his most recent decision against Kai Kara of France. He's got 7 wins via submission, 4 wins via knockout, but he's never been finished in his professional career. He's got a gold medal in Deaf Wrestling World Championships back in the day. That I thought was the most interesting part of. I like doing the little research things I do, just because you get to learn new things, man. I would have never. I don't know if maybe they don't do the interviews with him after the fights, or what exactly. Why I've never noticed. Maybe I've just never watched a post-fight interview from Askarov, but I never knew that. Or maybe you can wrestle in the Deaf Wrestling World Championships if you're not deaf. Maybe just not deaf. I don't know. I have no clue. But he's a very dominant wrestler. Brandon Royval, jack of all trades, good striker, good grappler, knockout power, submission threats always. I just think that normally when you get a guy, a Khamzat Chimaev, a Habib, a Marab, Davashvili, who else? What was the other guy that was really big until he got knocked out by Kevin Lee? Gregor Gillespie. These guys that are just these powerful wrestlers. It's a bad example with the whole Kevin Lee thing, but generally, in a general sense, when the skill level is close, but they're that dominant of a wrestler, they normally are able to take you down, hold you down, and kind of win decisions, beat you up down there, and it's kind of, it's the Kevin Holland thing. Kevin Holland, I'm sure, there was probably a bunch of media hysteria is the reason he was doing the retirement thing, but I'm sure it's also a lot of frustration that you're in a sport where, you could be one of the best ever if there was no takedowns, if there was no wrestling involved at all. You could possibly be the best ever. So, they say, oh, well, go do boxing or do kickboxing. It's a different sport. He could not be as good as he is in MMA in kickboxing because it's a different type of striking. We've all seen Kevin Holland's type of striking. He's knocked people out off his back, getting up, throwing his leverage, throwing punches, and he's had these wild lean back against Buckley. He had that lean back and then jab punch. That's not a normal punch to be thrown in boxing or kickboxing. It's just different mechanics. So there's no guarantee that his striking style would translate over to either one of those professional sports. Could he work at it? Yeah, but in his MMA career right now, black belt in jiu-jitsu, the striking that he has in MMA, he's already so far progressed in MMA. He definitely, I don't agree with him going over to boxing or kickboxing. I think he should keep trying MMA. I think that his training should consist of the basics, the reminders of the striking, the walkthroughs, the mechanics of striking, so he doesn't lose it. But then other than that, it should be every single day wrestling, every single day Sambo, every single day Greco-Roman. It should be every day some sort of grappling, just so at the very least he can perfect his takedown defense, so that these guys, Hamzat, Derek Brunson, Marvin Vittori, these guys can't just go in there and use their wrestling to dismantle this guy. The Hamzat Chimaev fight, I'm taking nothing away from Kevin Lee. I know, the glove touch, once the fight starts, you should expect everything. I hear you. But the fight starting and you diving across the octagon at a guy's legs kind of seems like a bitch move to me, man. I don't care if you're a wrestler. I don't care if Khabib never did that. Khabib would, and he's done it. I take it back. I never said Khabib never did it. But Khabib has done it. But when he's done it, it's obvious he doesn't want to strike with that person. He doesn't want to set anything up. He's scared of the fight standing up because he doesn't want to lose. Rightfully so. Nobody wants to lose. But I'm sure he could admit, too, he was scared to strike in those fights. That's the same thing with Hamzat. He was scared to strike with Kevin Lee. And in my opinion, yeah, that's cool. You're wrestling. You're dominant. This is a sport of mixed martial arts. I hear you. But what happened at that press conference and all the shit you've been talking, gangster this, gangster that, you don't dive at somebody's knees. That's just not something that happens when you get into a fight, especially when you're not a bad striker. You're a good striker. You've knocked guys out before. You've knocked Gerald Mearshart out before. You've beat guys up on the feet. You've struck for out of a 25 minute, was it 25 minutes? 15. I think it was 15-minute fight. A 15-minute fight, you probably struck with Gilbert Burns for at least 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. You didn't go straight for his legs. You're not bad at striking. You were just scared of Kevin Holland that day. You won't admit it. And you went diving for his knees. I don't know why we got on this Kevin Holland thing. My point was, Askarov was my pick. Decision. Let's move on. Again, I was a fan of Chimaev. No longer am because of the Kevin Lee thing. It is what it is. Dusko Tordovich versus Jordan Wright. Also another great middleweight fight that's going to happen on this card. Tordovich 11-3. UFC record of 2-3. TKO wins over Daquan Townsend and Maki Patolo. He has been knocked out in 2 out of 3 of his losses. Punalani, Soriano, and Chidi and Julkani. And then he also has a decision loss to RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez in his UFC career. 7 out of 11 of his wins are via knockout. 3 wins via submission. He has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in judo. He's coming into this fight with a 1-inch height and a 3-inch reach disadvantage against Jordan Wright. Wright with the size advantage, 12-3-1, UFC record of 2-3 as well. He's got TKO wins over Ike Villanueva and Jamie Pickett. And then he has 2 TK or knockout losses against Joaquin Buckley and Bruno Silva, followed by a submission loss in his most recent fight against Marc-Andre Barriault. He's got a 2-fight losing streak right now, Silva and Barriault. 100% finish rate in all of his wins, 7 knockouts, 5 by submissions. The guy's very athletic. He's got good grappling skills, knockout power. It just comes to a point where Jordan Wright in his career has went up against Ike Villanueva and Jamie Pickett, who kind of are on his talent level or below it. and then he took steps up to fight, I believe, Joaquin Buckley and Bruno Silva and even Marc-Andre Barriault. It's a slight step up, and he just wasn't ready for those fights, in my opinion. He should have been fighting guys like Dusko Torodovic instead of guys like Bruno Silva, who had 70, 80 kickboxing fights before he came into the UFC. A guy like Marc-Andre Barriault, who I think he's got like 15, 20 fights in his pro career, too. He matches up a little bit better with Jordan Wright as well. But I think when